Operation Mockingbird is something you might have heard about briefly once or twice, but you probably don't know much about it. This is due to most of the information about this operation missing, despite a public demand for it and even a subpoena for it, which came out right before the information disappeared forever. To put it simply, Operation Mockingbird was the CIA infiltrating the news industry, likely setting up many of their own agents as trusted news personalities. Here is a short bit from the Wikipedia page, and ask yourself if this is something you have personally observed happening over the past few years. In a 1977 Rolling Stone magazine article, The CIA and the Media, reporter Carl Bernstein wrote that by 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles oversaw the media network, which had major influence over 25 newspapers and wire agencies. Its usual modus operandi was to place reports developed by the CIA-provided intelligence with cooperating or unwitting reporters. Those reports would be repeated or cited by the recipient reporters and would then, in turn, be cited throughout the media wire services. What's the point of bringing up Operation Mockingbird, you might ask? I just think it's something important to keep in mind as I tell you this next story. Well, it was uncovered a few days ago that there is an online cabal of journalists from various outlets that use a Google group to communicate with one another in their bid to influence the news cycle. The only outlet talking about this is Breitbart and Jezebel, who are calling this JournoList 2. What's curious is that Breitbart was aware of this group and mentioned it in the article, but perhaps they just missed it entirely. I would not find it likely that most of these alt-media websites would have at least a small presence in this new group. Well, they're actually not that new. Here is a Breitbart article on the subject. I'll read through it quickly to give you an idea of what we're dealing with. An off-the-record private discussion group for left-wing journalists, similar to the controversial JournoList cabal, has been discovered. The group, which is hosted on Google Groups, was discovered after messages from New York Magazine journalist Jesse Singal were leaked. The listserv, per its About page, aims to provide an off-the-record discussion forum for left-of-center journalists, authors, academics, and wonks. It has been around for at least 8 years. I found discussion posts dating back as far as 2010, and has just over 400 members, 403 at the time of this writing, reported Jezebel. These members include New York Times best-selling authors, Ivy League academics, magazine editors, and other public intellectuals. In short, a lot of important people who influence public discourse through their written work. They use the listserv's forum to discuss current events, news from their respective fields, articles they've read, articles they've written, and other topics of public importance, Jezebel explained. A list of the members has yet to be released. It turns out that the group in question has been uncovered, and was actually mentioned directly in the article, near the end. Internet sleuths were able to determine that the group referenced in the article is none other than Cabalist, which was essentially a group that people from JournoList moved to after JournoList was exposed. After JournoList was shut down, a new group, which was called Cabalist, was started by Jonathan Cohn of the New Republic, Michelle Goldberg, and Stephen Tellis, a professor of political science at Johns Hopkins University. The group had 173 members by late July of 2010. This isn't surprising to anyone, that the so-called free press would collude behind the scenes in order to drive public dialogue in their own interest. Rather than discovering the truth and bringing that truth to the public, these people want to control what truth people are allowed to discuss. As a fictional character once said, the powerful and the ignorant have at least one thing in common. They don't alter their views to fit the facts. They alter the facts to fit their views. These journalists, who have deemed themselves infallible truth-tellers, want to cooperate with those that they already agree with and strategically drop certain stories in order to control what people will be talking about. Keep an eye out for this list to drop and what people and outlets will be included on it, as I think you will need to be as diligent as ever when consuming digital media. Next, we have a protest in Portland between Patriot Prayer and Antifa, Rather than discuss the series of events, here's a short video that should get the point across.
Up first for the chick magnets, it's Owen Milson.
The fudge nut!
Yeah, he's that dude going out with Goldie Hawn Jr.
Yeah, Kate. Oh, and he drops like he's going down on the Hudson. Let's see that again, Ken.
Yeah, did you see him hit that rock? I hope he didn't mess up his horribly misshapen nose again.
Right you are. Up next, the Studley Rimmer Valderramer.
Yeah, he's really short, but big in the shorts.
Well, he's only 5'2".
Yeah, but he's 6'4" laying down.
Right you are. And up next for the offenders, Winona Weiner.
Oh yeah, she's that famous shoplifter.
Oh! Well, believe me, Ken, she's done a lot worse.
Yeah, like Mr. Deeds with Adam Sandler. Whoa, looks like she lifted a couple of grapefruits.
And copped a mouthful of today's sludge, which is Riker's Thousand Islands hot salad dressing. And up next, it's longtime chick magnet, Matt Dillon.
Oh, he's got a huge package.
Oh, and Dillon falls right on it, Ken.
He totally wrecked that box, Vic.
It wouldn't be the first time, Ken.
And next, we have Ron Perlman, an actor that posts to social media like a teenage girl. Ron Perlman sends out crybaby tweets on the regular, one about him literally crying tears of virtue over my open borders. This week, however, he sent out a tweet that was then picked up by the Huffington Post and published as an article for whatever reason. Can we all just take 1 minute to collectively point our fingers and laugh at this pathetic little man? Ron Perlman is such a weak and or opportunistic person that instead of confronting somebody who has a bit of a reputation in his industry, he remained quiet until he could mention it later on social media for brownie points. Not only am I certain Perlman is a liar, but even if he is telling the truth, he's bragging about peeing on his own hand to own a literal predator, one he was likely doing everything he could do to please. They all knew what was going on. They all knew that Hollywood is a casting couch industry. It's obvious that untalented hacks that can't even correctly read their lines slept with Weinstein and others to get ahead of those who are more talented than they are. These people who have attempted to use their knowledge about Weinstein to insist their virtue do the exact opposite. It's not when it's easy to confront somebody that it's honorable or heroic. It's when it's difficult. None of these people said a word until it benefited their career to throw Weinstein under the bus. They are no better than Weinstein or any of the other sleazy executives in the movie industry, and in fact, many of them likely act in the way they always have. Nothing has changed. Don't buy their BS. And next, we have Jim Acosta. Every time this guy comes up in the news cycle, I think to myself, what will he do next? Last time we saw our needy White House correspondent, he was seemingly attempting to thwart a sort of peace treaty with another nation by heckling them as they signed. Well, obviously, we needed to take it to the next step. At a eulogy for what happened in Maryland, Jim Acosta acted in this way. Watch.
Mr. President, will you stop calling us the enemy of the people, sir? Will you stop calling the press the enemy of the people, sir? Mr. President, will you stop calling the press the enemy of the people, sir?
As always, they have to play the victim when they're not even involved in the situation at all. This has nothing to do with them, has nothing to do with Trump. As we know now, as the facts rolled out, this was completely unrelated to politics, but CNN saw an opportunity to play the victim, to exploit a tragedy. Imagine that. What a surprise that accredited organizations like CNN would use a tragedy to further their political agenda. Remember, Jim Acosta and others are the free press, and you have to wonder what kind of professional yells across a room like that. Is this the way that the free press should act? He even yelled right behind somebody's ear, and the man actually turned around and shushed him. This is obviously the opposite of professional. This is them acting in a way that might lead them to getting their press pass revoked. And when it gets revoked, you can expect that they will march around TV telling everybody about how they are being censored. The free market needs to be able to react, and there needs to be a healthy alternative news medium for people who do not want to encourage behavior like this in any way, or find out that an organization with ulterior motives is involved with it. Speaking of outrageous behavior, you might remember the fanatic shilling for net neutrality when there was news of it being repealed. The many popular social media platforms like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and even Netflix voiced their opposition to net neutrality repeal. Whatever you might think of net neutrality, we should be able to agree that there was some full-on propaganda going through the internet in its favor. It speaks volumes when a literal Bond villain endorses it and invests millions to push it. People were worked up in a frenzy, some of them convinced that the internet would be eviscerated if this legislation was repealed. As you likely know, some people take what happens on the internet very seriously. One of those people that takes the internet too seriously is a user with the email stubblemanliness@gmail.com who sent an email to Ajit Pai from this email address to appear tougher, in his own words, which is why he chose stubble manliness to seem tough. What email did he send? Well, let's just say they were a bit intimidating. And it was a list of addresses of preschools from Ajit Pai's area, implying that something bad might happen to his child if a certain legislation was repealed. Turns out that his child didn't actually attend any of those schools listed. The court documents are available below, and if you're interested, I would encourage you to read through them if you want to hear what it sounds like when a Redditor tries to act tough.
To them, they probably thought I was just moving out of the way, but I was actually setting up to where their blind spot was. The sad truth is that they weren't even a challenge. This is about what you saw on the train. It's folded, tempered, and it does its job.
Cairo says the 3 men on the train are lucky they ran.
I already had a full 5-stage plan ready to take everyone out, and anybody else who got involved, just in case. That's just the way I do. My family couldn't handle me. I had a
Alright, well that will be it for today. I'll have something else tomorrow. Let me know if you guys prefer the light music in the background or if you find it too distracting. I've just been experimenting with a lot of the things on the channel, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, so I appreciate your feedback.